Handwriting, the movement of handwriting, activates large regions in the brain that are responsible for thinking, language, healing, and working memory. Writing by hand really unleashes creativity that's not easily accessible other ways, like, for example, digital ways.
Welcome to the Inside Forbes Councils podcast. Each episode shares transformative insights and advice from members of Forbes Councils, a group of invitation-only communities for successful executives and entrepreneurs. This is Inside Forbes Councils.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Inside Forbes Councils podcast. My name is Stephen Ganoza, and I'm the producer of the Inside Forbes Councils podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about journaling. We have Cindy Stack of Whole Life Leader, who is an advocate of this daily routine, and not just for the sake of memories or to help you think strategically, but because it's good for your brain and brain health. So let's jump right in. Cindy, let's start off by having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
I'm Cindy Stack, and I'm a founding partner of Whole Life Leader. Our company's goal is to help leaders change daily habits that make an impact on their productivity and their overall satisfaction level. You know, one of the ways we do all of this is through journaling. When we teach leaders how to use tools like journaling to increase their ability to self-reflect and to use reflection, and then to be intentional about making choices. We offer one-on-one coaching, and we also do workshops for leaders.
Okay, so let's take a step back here. I want to start with a basic question. What is journaling?
Yeah, so it's kind of a simple question, but the simple answer is it's a written record of one's thoughts, experiences, and observations. And I'd like to share a little bit with you about studies. So handwriting, the movement of handwriting, activates large regions in the brain that are responsible for thinking, language, healing, and working memory. Writing by hand really unleashes creativity that's not easily accessible other ways, like, for example, digital ways. The other thing about using pen and paper is that it forces a slowing down of your life, and it gets us out of our busy, speedy routines.
Okay, well, if the benefit is in the physical act of writing, does it matter what I'm writing? Can I just doodle or write gibberish?
That's a good question. I don't know about the gibberish. What I do know is that the benefits of journaling help you clarify thoughts and feelings, and it gives you an increased self-awareness. So I don't think the gibberish would work. That sounds a little bit like calligraphy to me, where you're, drawing. But I do know that there's a big debate out there about whether or not they should teach cursive writing to children in schools. And that kind of gets to a repetitive action that's more artistic action. And they do say that children's brains develop better when they learn cursive.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So I think it's both and, to be honest with you.
Okay, so how do you work this then into your coaching business?
When I'm working with a client, so when I work with clients, there are a couple of things that I like to start an engagement with. One is I really like to help people identify what their strengths are. And identifying their strengths really helps them to change the lens on which they focus on the goals they want to accomplish. But then I like to help them get into a journaling habit. And I do this through kind of a guided process. I use a framework where I'll work with a client to ask them what their wish or their goal is that they're trying to accomplish. Most people don't hire a coach just to chat with a coach. They hire a coach for a specific reason. So I'll have them journal about what this wish and this goal is to make sure they've really grounded that in their minds and in their bodies. And then the next process would be to ask them to envision and to write down what the outcome is going to be. So jump right to what happens if you achieve this goal, and journal about the outcome, what it feels like, what it would be like, what your life would be like. And then we go back to obstacles and start journaling about what are the obstacles going to be that are going to get in your way of achieving your goal or your wish. And really write down any obstacle they can possibly imagine, completing an inventory. Once that inventory is completed, and they have a pretty hefty list of obstacles, they do a plan for each obstacle. They write it down. They use when this obstacle pops up, then I will, and talk about what the action is. So that's a format and a framework that I use with a lot of clients to help them achieve the goals that they're trying to meet by hiring a coach.
Okay, so going back to the more meditative aspect of journaling, what you described, walking a client through journaling, very cognitive to me, right? It's not like meditation has repetition, it has mantras, and it's also about not thinking. But here, you're thinking a lot.
Yeah, so that is what's interesting. So the research that I mentioned before about the way the brain works and comparing it kind of to a meditative state when you're using handwriting comes out of a study done at Indiana University, where they used brain imaging to see what was going on while people were handwriting. So what's interesting about that is it's both. It produced that cognitive relaxation and also deep thinking.
So there's real science to support this, right? It's not just nostalgia for the days before computers and iPads, and the Indiana University study had used brain imaging and science to support this. But for me, if I'm just starting journaling, or when you're working with your clients, right? So absent a big laboratory experiment, how do you prove that it's working?
So when I use this framework to work with clients, what my evidence is that it's working is that when I have the next meeting with that client, if they can't wait to share their journal with me, then I know that this is working. If they don't latch on to journaling, then what I notice is that maybe they really need to clarify what their goal is. So it's much more about, why would you hire a coach? If it's just kind of to vent, that's one thing. So a journaling process may or may not work for you. So commitment's really important. But I think if I get back to your question about proof, our studies about practicing gratitude, and how if you, at the end of your day, simply write down 3 things that went well and that you're grateful for, that your overall well-being will improve. And you can read about that in Tal Ben-Shahar's books, and many other people write about gratitude.
What does writing about gratitude and listing those 3 things do? What's the effect?
So it makes you appreciate the positive things that happened in your day. We're all wired to kind of, fight or flight, right? We're all wired to fight back or run away. But that means that we're fighting with those internal instincts all the time, and that to shift our mindset and our focus onto what went well. So if you appreciate the positive appreciates. And that is a Tal Ben-Shahar quote.
Okay, so you help your clients with journaling, but you don't necessarily need to hire a coach to journal, right? I mean, you just need a notepad.
No. Actually, that's why I wanted to talk about journaling today, because anybody can use it and you don't have to hire a coach. If you do, you might make very focused, you might accomplish your goal or have a focused result. But anybody can journal. And I say, keep it simple. If you're doing it on your own, don't overthink it. Whatever you do is great. Start small. Use the mindset of, this is an opportunity for me to reap the benefits of journaling. This is an opportunity for me to clarify my thoughts, to be more self-aware, to learn some patterns about myself. And if you do that, just my thought to someone journaling on their own would be, try it for 10 days, look back at your journal, and see if there are any patterns or trends that you can identify.
Okay, so before you mentioned writing down the 3 things you're grateful for at the end of the day, does that mean that the end of the day is the best time for journaling? Does it matter?
So my opinion is anytime you journal is a good time. And there are different, frameworks for journaling. In the morning, it's to set the pace for your day. It's to journal about what strengths you might bring into the day, how you might approach a problem that's coming up. At the end of the day, it's kind of a debrief, right? So at the end of the day, you're kind of saying what went well, what you might revise, how you might approach something differently. So I don't think there's one answer. I think that, the answer is what the answer is for you, whatever works for you. I have a client that she kept saying to me, I just can't journal. I can't find the time to journal. And I said to her, take your journal, put it someplace that you pass by several times during the day. And as you walk by, write one thing down. So there's no specific formula. I suggested one before that I like to use, but I think whatever the person who's journaling can find is good, because we know the research says your well-being will improve if you journal.
What happens if you miss a day, though?
Yeah, so lots of people do, including me. So when I miss days, I try not to get hung up on that. I try to say, okay, I'm just going to begin again tomorrow or not. I do also have a client who he was journaling in a certain way for about 11 weeks. And all of a sudden he just burnt out and he couldn't do it anymore. But he missed it. And he would say to me, oh my God, I got to get back to journaling because I was really getting in my groove then. And I'd really like to get back to it. And so there is something about journaling that if you can do it for a prolonged period of time, you'll want to do it.
Interesting. So how long have you been journaling?
Yeah, so I have been journaling probably on and off most of my life, starting from growing up with a grandfather who journaled daily. And he was doing it more to report on the weather and the things that were going on around him. But it sure did set up a structure and kind of a reference for me. We go back and we look at that journal now and we read it and laugh about some of the things that he wrote. So, on and off, I've been journaling, and I try to keep up with it because I do find it time when I can sit down alone, be with my own thoughts, have a cup of tea, and keep track of what's actually going on versus what I'm trying to keep up with.
Okay, so how long does it take to know if journaling is working for you?
Yeah, so I think that you'll know it's working for you if you reflect back on several days and you start to see patterns emerge, or you start to appreciate what it is that you're writing down.
So how long should you stick with it?
You know, if it's not working for you in 2 weeks, then there's something else going on.
Okay, let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Are you a successful executive or entrepreneur with insights to share? Learn more about our invitation-only communities at ForbesCouncils.com. Forbes Councils members have the opportunity to collaborate with fellow business leaders to overcome challenges and create new opportunities. Members also have access to support benefits that help them save time and money, and a platform, Community Voice, on Forbes.com, through which they can amplify their voices and exchange ideas. See if you qualify at ForbesCouncils.com.
And we're back with Cindy Stack, the Whole Life Leader, and we're discussing the power of journaling. What about journaling mistakes? Is there a way to journal wrong?
No. I would say that most of my clients either are very successful using journaling or it's just not their thing. And no matter what process I try with them, it doesn't quite work. But I would say that that is usually a mindset of, I'm too busy to take the time. And that, I think, is the biggest obstacle to overcome for most people with journaling, is to change their mindset, to think of this more as something they're doing for themselves to improve their overall well-being. And if somebody doesn't make that discovery, then journaling might not be for them.
Okay, Cindy, for someone who wants to learn more about journaling, what are some resources that are available?
Yeah, so I would say our website is a resource to go to get in touch with my partner or I. That's wholelifeleader.com. Then I would also like to refer to Gabrielle Ottingen's book, Rethinking Positive Thinking Inside the New Science of Motivation. She's a professor at NYU. And while this book isn't specifically about journaling, it's where I came up with my framework for how to coach people through a wish, opportunities, obstacles, and their plans for this. The other excellent free resource is Nathaniel Brandon's website, where he has 3 different ways that you can use sentence stems to journal. So for those people that don't know where to start, sometimes completing sentence stems is a good way to go about it.
What's a sentence stem?
Right, so a sentence stem is when you're given a beginning of a sentence and you, the journaler, complete that sentence as many ways as possible. So I'll give you an example. One sentence stem is, if I accept responsibility for my life and well-being, then you answer that as many times as possible. So let's try it with you.
If I accept, what was it?
If I accept responsibility for my life and well-being, how would you complete that sentence?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was move out of New York City.
Right. So, I mean, this is it. The sentence completion, the sentence stems are meant for you to give as many responses as possible. In your case, the first thing you came up with is move out of New York. Probably get out of the office by 4 to beat the traffic to the Hamptons. I mean, whatever it might be, you do that as many times as possible. And there's a series of them. Another one is, if I accept responsibility for my choices and decisions. Move out of New York. No, I don't know, but this is an example of a sentence stem. And Nathaniel Brandon has created a whole series of them. He's a psychologist, and The ones I'm giving you are from a program that he has. He has 3 of them, and one is on self-responsibility. That helps people to establish boundaries.
Okay. Okay, so enough about me. Cindy, what haven't we talked about yet?
I really believe in journaling, and I would just say, give it a try. You may find it works for you, and you may not, but it's worked for me, and it's worked for 80% of my clients, and it's working in our programs. And when it works well, there are huge rewards for the person.
Okay, Cindy, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, yeah, so I guess I gotta go find a notebook. But that's all for today. I want to thank Cindy for a very interesting discussion on journaling and why you need to do it on real paper, not just in a Google Doc or in the Notes app on your iPad. We'll see you on the next episode.
This has been Inside Forbes Councils. Please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a member of the Forbes Councils and would like to participate in our podcast series, please email your member concierge. If you're interested in joining a Forbes Council, learn more at ForbesCouncils.com.